Mission Aviation Fellowship had their base next to a small town called Ixtapa. They had 2 airplanes and served the Wycliffe Bible translators and the Reformed Church missionaries. The view from the air shows how the airstrip is located on a flat strip of land between deep canyons. After a half-hour climb into the hills, we fly over the Corralito Church and Clinic to alert them of our arrival, and then turn toward the airstrip that hides behind a hill. The plane follows the creek, avoids a couple of tall trees, makes a quick right-hand turn, and lands on the narrow airstrip. After quickly unloading, the plane takes off, and men arrive to carry the baggage to the clinic and missionary home. From the trail, we get a good view of the church building. Perched on a hill and facing the church are the clinic and missionary home. Mariana Slocum, the Wycliffe Bible translator, has accompanied us to introduce us to the Tzeltals. She and Florence Gerdell lived nearly 10 years in Corralito, translating the New Testament and beginning the medical work. Then they moved to the lowland part of the tribe to begin work in that dialect of Tzeltal. Here, Mariana is meeting with the elders and deacons of the Corralito Church. This is the view of the church from the 2nd floor of the clinic. It's about a 10-minute walk to the church on a Sunday morning. The stream in the valley provided a convenient place for foot washing. This stream is the beginning of the Hatate River. At the church, Mariana is greeted by Tomas Lopez Chic and his wife. Tomas was a highly respected and feared shaman. After his conversion, many of his relatives and neighbors also became Christians. Occasionally, the MAF airplane would make a mail drop, sometimes using a parachute. The package is on its way just under the airplane. The airstrip deteriorated in the rainy season, and on one landing, the plane was not able to stop. It skidded off the end and damaged a landing gear. Repair parts were flown in, repairs were done quickly, and the men pulled the plane back onto the strip. So the Tzeltals carried gravel on their backs from a nearby hillside and covered the entire airstrip with gravel. Our first visitor was a young man named Stephen. Here he and I are shelling a gift of beans. On a rainy day, a neighbor boy, Alonso Champil, invited Stephen and me to see a nearby cave. On the way home, he gave us some sugar cane to chew on. Another visitor was our area secretary, Howard Shade. The clinic and missionary home are in the background. Maria Champil was often a visitor and helped Helen with language study. The clinic was in the charge of 3 church elders, Domingo Lopez Mucha, Tomas Santis Quituk, and Jacinto Santis. They had a filing system that had information cards for all the patients. Domingo is trying to find one. On Fridays, they had tooth extractions. If Tomas and Domingo were busy, Maria became the dentist. Tomas and Maria were our special friends. Here they are guests in our home with their children, Anita and Gabriel. Here Anita is in Helen's lap. And here Anita is posing in a newly woven blouse. A house for overnight patients was built next to the clinic. The men are trimming bamboo for the walls. Here is the finished product. We are celebrating my 25th birthday with the Meyerings. The missionary home and clinic was located on land belonging to Sebastian Lopez Mucha, a deacon of the congregation. They had 11 children. His daughter Alicia is weaving cloth for a Tzeltal blouse. She and her sister Manuela made Tzeltal outfits for us. Tomas Lopez Mucha was a helpful language teacher for me. Here he is tying bamboo to the poles of a new house. A Tzeltal mother and her children are on their way home after visiting the clinic. Ignacia Lopez Mucha is getting a bucket of water from the stream. Just a bit downstream was the Corralito school. A huge crowd gathered for the Easter service. Many came from the surrounding daughter congregations. Since they could not fit inside the church building, they met outside under bright sunshine. It was a long 3-hour service, as the choirs of all the congregations participated in the service. Maria, sister of Elder Tomas Santis Kituk, was married to Francisco Mendez Chishna, who later became an ordained minister. There was always lots of music in their churches. Here a family choral group participates in the worship. Elder and schoolteacher Francisco Gomez Nimail is teaching the men's Sunday school class. An additional building is under construction to serve as a classroom and dining room. A women's Sunday school class is meeting in the background. Helen prepared flannel graph lessons in Tzeltal and taught a couple of the teachers how to use them for the children's Sunday school classes. Sebastian Santis Pe, who became an evangelist for the Huisteco Tzotzils, was one of the teachers. Deacon Nicolas Gomez Nich, a converted shaman, went from class to class, making sure all were paying close attention. He was so attracted by the flannel graph lesson that he had to have a closer look. In 1960, 140 church leaders met for a conference at Corralito. They came from 26 congregations, including 4 of the first converts from Tenihapa. The feeding of the men was a real challenge for the church kitchen crew. Here the women are shelling corn. The corn was boiled in large metal tubs and later ground and patted into tortillas. 3 believers came from the village of Triunfo, where they were experiencing strong opposition. Isidro Gomez Espinosa, the tall man on the right, volunteered to move to Triunfo to support them. Henry and Charmaine Steginga and Char's sister Cynthia visited us at Corralito. They were there for a Sunday service, Helen in Tzeltal dress and Char in her chol outfit. In 1967, the old church in Corralito was torn down, and a permanent brick building was constructed under the direction of Manuel Pinto of Las Margaritas with his 3 Mexican helpers. The dedication of the new church building was a great celebration. Gerald Van Engen is holding our son David. His wife Ruth and Manuel Pinto also were there to celebrate. There was a huge crowd waiting to get into the church, and they filled the church to overflowing. One of the local choral groups was led by Jose Diaz, husband of Sarah Gomez, the daughter of Pastor Francisco. For this choral group, the biggest guitarrón was played by the smallest boy, and also for this group. None of the music escaped, as there were dozens of tape recorders taping it all. Francisco Gomez was an effective preacher. He became a candidate for the ministry in 1960. And he also played the accordion. In 1963, Francisco was ordained as the first Tzeltal minister. He and his wife Maria were faithful leaders. Here Francisco is preaching at an Easter service with the elders seated on the platform behind him. When a new edition of the hymnal was printed, the deacons sold them out of the church window. There were long lines of buyers and great eagerness and appreciation. In 1988, there was a celebration of the 25th anniversary of Francisco's ordination. Special guests were Reverend Daniel Aguilar and church builder Manuel Pinto, being greeted by Francisco. Don Daniel and Don Manuel greeted each other with a warm abrazo, with a warm hug. The congregation had gifts for Don Daniel and Don Manuel. Daniel spoke to the congregation, with Francisco translating from Spanish to Tzeltal. Manuel Pinto also spoke to the congregation. And then the congregation presented a gift to Francisco. Francisco preached the sermon, and Helen, Lisa, Dorothy Meyerink, and Ardith Vandenberg had front row seats. A delicious chicken dinner followed the service, with Steve Van Bronckhorst also present. A few years later, they removed a wall of the church building and creatively expanded the church down the hill so that it now holds over 1,500 people. This shows the women on one side of the church, and this shows the men on the other side. What a change in 40 years, from 30 families in 1949 to this in 1990.